I always believed that a man should protect his family, provide for them, and ensure that his children have a future better than his own. That belief was the foundation of everything I built. Every overtime shift, every sacrifice, every dollar saved. It was all for my children's future. That's why, when I logged into the savings account that night, expecting to see the hard-earned money I had been setting aside for Jason and Sophia's education, I nearly stopped breathing. $0. At first, I refreshed the page. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe my bank servers were down. But the balance didn't change. The money was gone. My pulse pounded in my ears as I clicked on the transaction history. A full withdrawal, processed 2 days ago. The recipient? Lisa Collins. My wife. I sat back in my chair, my hands gripping the desk so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My breathing became shallow. It wasn't an error. It wasn't fraud. She had done this. There was only one reason Lisa would transfer that kind of money. I slowly pushed back my chair and stood up, my limbs feeling foreign, stiff with shock. My mind raced through the possibilities. Maybe there was an emergency. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe, then I heard it. Laughter. Clinking glasses. The faint pop of a wine bottle. I stepped into the hallway and followed the sound into the living room. Lisa was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone with a self-satisfied smirk. A glass of wine sat half full on the coffee table beside her. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. "Hey, babe," she said casually, as if she hadn't just gutted me financially, as if she hadn't just stolen from our children. I stood there, frozen in place, my mind unable to process how she could look so relaxed while I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. "Lisa," I said slowly, forcing my voice to remain calm. "Where's the money?" She took a sip of her wine, licking her lips as she set the glass down. Then, with the ease of someone discussing the weather, she said, "Oh, I used it for my vacation with Mark." I felt something inside me snap. Mark, the boyfriend, the man she had been sneaking around with behind my back, thinking I didn't know. The world blurred at the edges. My hands curled into fists at my sides, but I didn't move. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "You used our kids' savings for a vacation," I said, barely recognizing my own voice. Lisa let out a scoffing laugh. "Well, what else was I supposed to do? I deserved it." She stretched her legs out, looking completely unbothered. "You'll figure something out. Deal with it." It took everything in me not to destroy something in that moment. How? How could she sit there and say those words so easily? How could she have no remorse? I looked at her, the woman I had once loved, the mother of my children, and saw nothing but greed. I exhaled slowly, forcing my body to stay still, my mind to stay clear, and then I heard it. A soft chuckle. I turned my head slightly and saw Jason, our 9-year-old son, standing in the doorway. His arms were crossed over his chest, and he was watching the scene unfold with a strange expression, one I had never seen before. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't confusion. It was the amusement. Like he had just watched a villain in a movie dig their own grave. Lisa still hadn't noticed him, too busy admiring her own nails. Jason looked up at me, his face unreadable. Then, with the smallest, most chilling smirk, he said, "Leave her to me, Dad." For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or be deeply disturbed. Jason was 9, a kid. He should have been devastated, crying, asking me why Mom would do this. Instead, he was calm, too calm, and that smirk, that quiet amusement in his eyes, it sent a chill down my spine. Lisa, still lounging like a queen on her stolen throne, hadn't even noticed him. She was too busy scrolling through her phone, probably checking her flight itinerary for the trip she'd funded with our children's future. I turned to Jason, lowering my voice. "What do you mean, leave her to you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked past me like I wasn't even there. Not in a defiant way, not in a rebellious way, in a deliberate way, like he had already moved past the emotions I was still drowning in. Jason stopped right in front of Lisa and waited. She barely spared him a glance. "Jason, go play or something. Mommy's busy." Jason didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even flinch. "You took my money," he said plainly. His voice was eerily steady. Too steady. Lisa sighed dramatically, rubbing her temple. Oh my God, I don't need this right now. Look, kid, I'll make it up to you. Okay? I'll buy you something nice when I get back. Jason tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was some kind of lab experiment. Then, still in that same calm, knowing tone, he said, What makes you think you're coming back? Lisa finally looked up. What? Jason smiled. A slow, deliberate smile. One that looked far too old for a boy his age. Nothing, he said simply. Enjoy your vacation, Mom. Then he turned around and walked off, disappearing down the hallway toward his room. I stood there frozen, watching him go, a strange sense of unease creeping up my spine. Jason had always been smart, brilliant, actually, too brilliant for his age. I had caught him coding on his tablet before, watching documentaries that most kids his age would find boring. And now, he had just walked away without a single tear, without a single outburst. I wasn't sure whether to be proud or absolutely terrified. Lisa, of course, dismissed it like she dismissed everything that didn't directly benefit her. She shook her head and mumbled, That boy is getting weird. Probably takes after you. I ignored her, my mind still on Jason's words. What makes you think you're coming back? Later that night I couldn't sleep. Not just because I was furious. Not just because I was trying to figure out how to fix the mess Lisa had left behind. I couldn't sleep because Jason's words kept playing in my head, and the fact that, after dinner, he had locked himself in his room. I knocked lightly. Jason? No answer. I tried the handle. Locked. I frowned. He never locked his door. I knocked again, a little harder this time. Jason, what are you doing? Still nothing. I was about to insist he open up when I heard it. Typing. Fast, furious typing. Like the kind you hear in those hacker movies where someone's breaking into a secure system. I didn't know whether to be impressed or concerned. Jason, I called again. Are you okay? A pause. Then, through the door, he said calmly, I'm just making sure Mom gets exactly what she deserves. I stared at the door. A million thoughts ran through my head. Should I stop him? Should I ask what he was doing? Should I tell him this wasn't his fight? But then, I thought about Lisa. I thought about her smugness, her utter lack of remorse, the way she had stolen from her own children and then told me to deal with it as if we were nothing. And for the first time in my life, I didn't intervene. I took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and stepped away from the door. Whatever Jason was doing in there, whatever plan he had, I decided to trust him. Maybe, just maybe, Lisa was about to learn that she messed with the wrong son. I woke up the next morning expecting Jason to still be locked in his room, buried in whatever secret plan he had been cooking up. But when I walked into the kitchen, there he was, sitting at the table, calmly eating cereal like he hadn't spent half the night typing away like a teenage hacker. Morning, Dad, he said casually, not even looking up from his spoon. I stared at him, half expecting to see some sign. Some crack in his composure that would give away what he had done. But there was nothing. Just Jason being Jason. Calm. Smirking. Unbothered. I poured myself a cup of coffee, leaning against the counter. You sleep well? Very well, he said between bites. Mom should be landing in a few hours. Something about the way he said it made me pause mid-sip. Should be? Before I could ask him to elaborate, my phone vibrated on the counter. I glanced at the screen. Lisa. I didn't pick up. I didn't need to. She was probably calling to brag about how much fun she was having with Mark. Maybe even send me a picture of her champagne breakfast, just to rub salt in the wound. I set the phone down. Jason didn't even acknowledge it. A few hours later, she texted, Lisa, just landed. About to check into the resort. Enjoy the mess at home. I didn't reply. And neither did Jason. Not with words, at least. Trouble in paradise by evening, Lisa's messages changed. Lisa, WTF is going on? Lisa, Michael, did you do something? Lisa, answer me. The hotel just canceled our reservation. They're kicking us out. I took another sip of my coffee. Jason sat across from me, flipping through a book, completely unfazed. I held up the phone. Should I answer? I asked. Jason didn't even look up. No need. Lisa called again. Then again. By the fifth time, I finally picked up, putting the phone on speaker. The moment the call connected, Lisa's voice erupted through the phone, pure panic laced in every word. Michael, what the hell did you do? I raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? The hotel, the resort, everything's been canceled. They kicked us out, Michael. I already paid. I glanced at Jason. He was casually flipping a page in his book, completely unbothered. You sure about that? I asked, tilting my head. Yes, I'm sure. I paid. Lisa suddenly paused, her breath hitching. Then, in a shaky voice, she asked, Where's my money? I waited. Jason smiled. Then, just barely above a whisper, he muttered, Here we go. I heard the rustling of fabric, the frantic tapping of Lisa's phone screen as she logged into her bank app. Then, a horrified gasp. I didn't even need to ask. I already knew what she was seeing. Zero. Every single dollar she had left gone. Not stolen. Moved. Hidden. Transferred in ways so seamless that even the most determined fraud investigator would struggle to untangle it. Jason didn't just cut off her vacation. He dismantled her entire safety net. You bastard! Lisa shrieked. What did you do? I sighed, stretching my legs. Now, Lisa, that's not a very nice way to talk to your husband. Michael, I swear to God I cut her off. I didn't do anything, Lisa. I didn't even lift a finger. Silence. Lisa's breath was ragged, her mind racing, trying to connect the dots. And then, finally, it clicked. Her voice dropped into a whisper. It was him, wasn't it? I didn't answer. Jason, bless his little mastermind soul, leaned toward the phone and calmly said, You stole from us first, Mom. The silence that followed was delicious. I could practically hear Lisa's soul leaving her body. Then, in a voice so faint, so genuinely terrified, she whispered, Jason, what did you do? Jason yawned. Nothing much. Just even the playing field. Lisa was hyperventilating. Michael, listen to me. You need to fix this. I'm stranded. I have no money, no hotel, nothing. I can't even change my flight. Sounds like a problem, I said, rubbing my chin. Michael, please. Her voice cracked, genuine panic sinking in. Then Jason spoke again. Don't worry, Mom. This is just the beginning. Lisa screamed. The call disconnected. Jason sat back, looking completely at peace, like he had just finished a school project early and had the rest of the day to relax. I stared at him. What exactly did you do? I asked. Jason smirked. Let's just say she's about to find out what it feels like to have everything taken away. I didn't know whether to be proud or terrified, but I did know one thing. Lisa was about to learn a lesson she'd never forget. I sat there for a long time after Lisa's call ended, staring at my phone. She was using stolen money anyway, Jason said, so the bank flagged her account real fast. Her cards? Declined. Her PayPal and Venmo? Frozen. Every emergency backup she had, gone. But Jason wasn't done. She booked the resort under her name, right? Jason asked. I nodded. Well, resorts hate scammers. And I happened to forward some very interesting financial reports to the hotel management about a guest named Lisa Collins. My mouth dropped open. Jason had sent an anonymous tip to the hotel's fraud department, linking Lisa's account to a fake embezzlement scandal. Her booking was immediately canceled. They don't like bad press, Jason said smugly. So, they kicked her out. That was when Lisa called me. And Jason? He wasn't even sweating it. Here's where things got evil. Jason drained every last dollar Lisa had left. Using her own login credentials, Jason transferred all her money to a charitable fund, one that just so happened to be in my name. Technically, I never stole from her. Lisa had simply been generous. Did you cover your tracks? I asked, half joking, half terrified. Jason grinned. Dad, I'm 9. Do you really think anyone's gonna believe I did this? Damn it. He was right. No one would ever suspect him. Lisa's realization the last thing Jason did before walking away from the table that night? He sent an email from Lisa's account to her own boss. A resignation letter. Mom didn't appreciate her job anyway, Jason said innocently. I figured she wouldn't mind. I almost choked on my coffee. Jason, don't worry, he cut in. I was polite. I even thanked them for the opportunity. I dragged a hand down my face. Lisa was finished. Her money was gone. Her credit was frozen. Her hotel had kicked her out. And now, she was unemployed. All in one day. The phone call that ended it all. Lisa called back hours later. This time, she wasn't screaming. She wasn't yelling or threatening. She was crying. Michael, she sniffled, please, you have to help me. I don't have anywhere to stay. I can't book a flight back. I don't even have money for food. I stared at my phone. A part of me felt something. Not pity. Not regret. Just closure. Deal with it, I said and hung up. Jason grinned. Nice. Lisa Collins had played a dirty game. But Jason? Jason rewrote the rules. And she never even saw it coming. After hanging up on Lisa, I expected her to call back. To scream. To curse. To threaten. But instead, she went completely silent. For the first time since she stole our kid's future, she had nothing to say. And that silence? All you need is the right headline, a few well-placed hashtags, and boom. He snapped his fingers. The internet does the rest. My son was terrifying. And Lisa? Lisa was about to find out what happens when you become the internet's new favorite villain. Lisa's face, a picture from her office's website, was plastered everywhere. People were sharing screenshots of her social media posts, dissecting her old photos, mocking her in real time. User 1. She stole from her own kids? User 2. Nah, imagine being this heartless. User 3. Someone find her ex-husband and tell him we stan him. User 4. What's the boyfriend's name? Mark? LMAO, Mark better run. I clicked open her social media. Thousands of comments. Thousands of people calling her out. And in the middle of it all? Jason. This kid was responding to comments like a professional PR rep. This 9-year-old had just weaponized the internet against his own mother. And the best part? She had no idea yet. It didn't take long for the phone calls to start. First, her job. Her boss left a voicemail. His voice strained with disappointment. Lisa, we've seen the reports online. We can't have someone like this representing our company. Consider this an immediate termination. Don't come back to the office. Jason hummed. That was fast. Next, her landlord. Lisa, I don't want any part of this mess. You need to find somewhere else to stay. I'm not renewing your lease. And finally, Lisa. Her name flashed across my phone screen. I answered. The first thing I heard was sobbing. Not the angry, manipulative kind of sobbing. Not the I'll sue you kind. This was raw. This was a broken woman. Michael, she whimpered. Michael, please. I don't know what's happening. I glanced at Jason, who was now watching a documentary about cybersecurity like this was just another regular day. Let me guess, I said. You Googled yourself? Lisa gasped. Like the thought had never even crossed her mind. I imagined her fingers frantically typing her own name, scrolling in horror as she realized the world now saw her for what she really was. A selfish, heartless, scheming woman who stole from her own family. Her life was over. The internet never forgets. I need you to make it stop, Lisa sobbed. Michael, please. I lost my job. I lost my place. People are threatening me. I can't even show my face outside. I stared at my coffee, swirling it around in my mug. Sounds like a problem. Michael, this isn't funny. I need your help. I leaned back. Help. Lisa sucked in a shaky breath. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I shouldn't have taken the money. I shouldn't have done this to you. To the kids. She was breaking. She wasn't the smug woman who sat on my couch and told me to deal with it. She was desperate, alone, ruined, and a small part of me didn't care. I had spent years forgiving Lisa, years giving her second chances. This wasn't just karma. This was justice. But before I could respond, Jason spoke. Mom, he said, his voice flat. You're only sorry because you got caught. Lisa went silent. Jason leaned forward, his expression finally serious. You stole from us, he continued. You laughed about it. You told Dad to deal with it. Now, you're the one dealing with it." Lisa's breath hitched, and in the silence that followed, I realized something. There was no coming back from this. Lisa wasn't just ruined. She was erased. No money, no job, no home, no reputation, just nothing. And Jason was the one who made it happen. I finally spoke, my voice calm. "Good luck, Lisa." Then, without waiting for her response, I hung up. Lisa didn't call back after I hung up. For the first time since this nightmare began, she didn't fight. She didn't curse. She didn't scream. She didn't try to manipulate her way out. She just disappeared. I knew why. She was stuck. She had no money, no place to stay, and no one to call for help. Mark, her so-called boyfriend, had already abandoned her. The second he saw the internet turn on Lisa, he ghosted her faster than a criminal ditching evidence. She had officially hit rock bottom. And I went to bed that night feeling lighter than I had in years. Lisa had spent years making my life a living hell, thinking I'd always be the safety net that caught her fall. Not this time. This time, she fell straight to the bottom. And the best part? Jason was the one who pulled the floor out from under her. The next morning, I expected things to be quiet. I expected Lisa to still be licking her wounds, hiding in a motel somewhere, too embarrassed to show her face. Instead, I woke up to a text. "Lisa, I got a flight. Landing at 7 p.m. Pick me up." I stared at my phone. Then I laughed. Not just a chuckle. "You're that lady, aren't you?" she said. Lisa tensed. "What?" The woman pulled out her phone, showing Lisa her own viral scandal. Lisa froze. And then, the whispering started. People around her began murmuring, pulling out their own phones, looking at her, pointing. "That's her. Yeah, she's the one who stole from her own kids." Disgusting. Lisa wanted to disappear. The shame was unbearable. Her entire reputation was in flames, and there was nowhere to run. For the first time in her life, Lisa was nobody. By the time Lisa's flight landed, she was exhausted, humiliated, and completely alone. She walked out of the terminal, scanning the pickup area. She expected to see me waiting. Maybe not with open arms, but at least waiting. Instead, nothing. No car, no family, no husband, no Jason. Just for a little while. Just to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, staring at her. For years, she had treated me like a backup plan. Like I was someone she could cheat, steal from, humiliate, and then just expect to take her back. Not anymore. I shook my head. No tears filled her eyes. "Michael," I cut her off. "You made your bed, Lisa." I stepped back, gripping the doorknob. "Now deal with it." Then, I closed the door. Lisa didn't move. She just stood there, staring at the wood, realizing that this time, she wasn't getting back in. When I shut the door in Lisa's face, I expected her to leave, to storm off, to find someone else to leech off, to vanish into the same darkness she had created for herself. But she didn't. She just stood there. For minutes. For hours. Like she couldn't process that. For the first time in her life, she wasn't wanted. I watched from the window as she slumped onto the front steps, hugging her knees to her chest, her once flawless makeup smudged with exhaustion. Lisa Collins, the woman who thought she was untouchable, the woman who stole from her own kids and laughed about it, was now nothing more than a shadow sitting on my porch. She had nowhere to go. And honestly, I didn't care. The inside of my house felt lighter without Lisa's presence. For the first time in years, I didn't have to walk on eggshells. I didn't have to wonder if I was being played. I didn't have to question if my own wife was plotting against me. Jason was sitting on the couch, his legs tucked under him, flipping through channels like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just ended an entire person's existence. I cleared my throat. She's still outside. Jason didn't even look up. "Yeah, I know. She's not leaving." Jason hummed. "Not yet." I stared at him. "Are you okay?" Jason finally turned his head. His face was unreadable, his expression somewhere between apathetic and victorious. "I'm fine, Dad," he said simply. "For the first time in a long time, I'm fine." And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just my battle. Lisa hadn't just betrayed me. She had betrayed him, too. She had stolen from her own kids, laughed in their faces, and expected them to just accept it. Jason hadn't ruined Lisa out of anger. He had done it because he needed to. Because he needed to make sure that, after today, Lisa could never hurt us again. I exhaled, rubbing my temple. What do we do about her? Jason tilted his head, thinking. Let her sit. Sit. Jason nodded. Let her feel it. Feel what? Jason's gaze darkened. What it's like to be powerless. For hours, Lisa sat on the front steps. Neighbors passed by, stealing glances, whispering. She ignored them. She was too busy wrestling with the reality of her situation. No home, no job, no money, nothing. She checked her phone for the 100th time. Still blocked. Jason had cut her off. Sophia hadn't reached out. Her boyfriend had vanished. She was completely, utterly alone. Finally, as the sun started to set, she did the only thing left. She knocked on the door. Once, then twice. Then she whispered, "Michael, please." I heard it. Jason heard it. Neither of us moved. Lisa knocked again, weaker this time. "Michael, I have nowhere else to go." A long pause. Then Jason, without even looking up, said, "That's not our problem." Lisa let out a broken sob. For the first time in her entire life, she understood what it felt like to be discarded, to be abandoned, to be left behind, the same way she had done to us. An hour later, Lisa finally got up. Her movements were slow, stiff, like a woman who had just lost everything she thought she could never lose. She walked down the driveway, one shaky step at a time, her shoulders hunched under the weight of her own mistakes. I didn't stop her. Jason didn't stop her. No one did. And as she disappeared into the night, I realized something. Lisa Collins had always thought she was the main character, that she could burn down our lives and still be the hero. But now, she was just another cautionary tale, one that no one would remember. And I was finally free. I thought Lisa's departure would bring a sense of closure, that watching her disappear into the night, stripped of everything she once held over us, would be the final nail in the coffin. But it wasn't, because even after she was gone, her shadow lingered. She had spent years embedding herself into my life, our home, our finances, our family. Getting rid of her wasn't as simple as shutting a door. I needed to make sure she could never come back. And for that, I needed something far more permanent. A divorce. The next morning, I woke up early. I brewed coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and did what Lisa never thought I'd do. I fought back. I pulled out the stack of legal documents I had been avoiding for months, the divorce papers. Lisa always thought I'd hesitate, that I'd never go through with it. She was wrong. I had nothing left to give her. No sympathy, no patience, no second chances. By noon, I was sitting in a law office, signing the final papers that would officially erase her from my life. And I made sure of two things. 1, full custody of the kids. 2, she got nothing. No alimony. No assets. Not a single cent from me. She had already taken what wasn't hers. She wasn't getting another dime. When I left the lawyer's office, I felt lighter. For the first time in years, I was no longer trapped in Lisa's world. I sent the documents to Lisa through a professional courier. No warnings. No messages. Just cold, clinical paperwork sealing her fate. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. "Lisa," I answered, already knowing what was coming. "You're divorcing me," she whispered. Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. I leaned back in my chair. "You expected me not to?" Lisa sucked in a breath. "Michael, I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking." I laughed. Actually laughed. "You weren't thinking?" I repeated. "Lisa, you stole from your own kids. You cheated. You told me to deal with it. Now you want to play the regret card." Silence. Then, in a desperate, trembling voice, she said, "We can fix this." I shook my head, exhaling. "No, Lisa. You broke this." I heard her breath hitch, like she hadn't actually believed I would go through with it. Like she still thought there was a way out. But there wasn't. This was final. Lisa wasn't one to go down without a fight. The next day, I got another call. This time, She was angry. "You can't take the kids from me," she screamed. I smirked. "Watch me." "You're punishing me, Michael. I'm still their mother." "You weren't their mother when you stole from them." "You're cruel," she hissed. "This isn't fair." Fair? Lisa spent years playing dirty, lying, cheating, manipulating. And now that the consequences had finally caught up to her, she wanted to talk about fairness? I didn't argue. I didn't give her an inch. I simply said, "See you in court." Then, I hung up. That evening, Jason sat at the kitchen table, finishing his homework like nothing had changed. I sat across from him, watching my 9-year-old son, the boy who had dismantled an entire person with nothing but a laptop and a grudge. "She called," I said. Jason didn't even blink. Figured she would. "She's mad about the divorce." Jason snorted. "She's mad about losing. That's different." I watched him for a moment. "Do you regret it?" Jason finally looked up, his expression calm. Steady. "Do you?" he asked. I thought about it. About all the nights I spent wondering if I should have left sooner. About all the times I forgave Lisa when she didn't deserve it. About the years I wasted trying to hold on to a marriage that was already dead. And I realized, no, I didn't regret it. Not for a second. Lisa made her choice. Now she had to live with it. A month later, the divorce was finalized. Lisa didn't win a single thing. No money. No house. No custody. She walked away with exactly what she deserved. Nothing. And as I stood outside that courthouse, watching the lawyer shake my hand and congratulate me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. Lisa was gone. And she was never coming back. The day the divorce was finalized, Lisa didn't show up to court. She didn't try to fight for custody. She didn't argue about the settlement. She didn't even send one of her usual rage-fueled texts. She just disappeared. And for a while, I thought maybe, just maybe, she had finally accepted defeat. I was wrong. Lisa wasn't done. She was just waiting for the right moment to strike. 2 months after the divorce, I came home from work to find Jason standing by the window, his arms crossed, staring at something outside. "She's here," he muttered. I followed his gaze. There, standing at the edge of the driveway, was Lisa. She looked different. Her once perfectly styled hair was messy, her clothes were wrinkled, and the confidence she once carried herself with was gone. For the first time in her life, Lisa looked small. I opened the door but didn't step outside. Lisa hesitated, then took a shaky breath. "Michael, can we talk?" I didn't answer right away, because for the first time in years, I didn't feel a single thing for this woman. No love, no hate, not even pity, just nothing. But I was curious, so I let her talk. "I lost everything," she whispered. "My job, my savings, my friends. Even my own family won't speak to me." I leaned against the doorframe. "Sounds like a problem." Lisa flinched, the same words she once threw at me now cutting her like a blade. She swallowed hard. "Michael, I was awful to you. I was selfish and cruel and I don't even know who I was back then." I raised an eyebrow. "Back then?" Lisa looked down, rubbing her arms. "I've been trying to change. I've been going to therapy. I know it doesn't fix anything, but..." She looked up, her eyes pleading. "I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry." For a brief moment, the past flashed in my mind. The betrayal, the lies, the night she drained our kids' savings and laughed in my face. And now? Now, she wanted to be the victim. I exhaled slowly. "Lisa, let me ask you something." She nodded quickly. "Anything?" I met her gaze. "If none of this had happened, if Jason hadn't outsmarted you, if the world hadn't turned against you, would you still be here apologizing?" Lisa froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. And in that moment, we both knew the answer. No, she wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry for what she lost. For the first time in her life, Lisa Collins was held accountable, and she couldn't handle it. Lisa's shoulders sagged, defeat settling into her bones. "Can I at least see Jason?" she whispered. Behind me, Jason finally spoke. "No." Lisa turned to him, tears welling in her eyes. "Jason, please. I'm still your mother." Jason's face was unreadable. You stopped being my mother the day you stole from us, he said. And now you want to come back just because you have nothing left? Lisa flinched like she'd been slapped. I just want to fix things. Jason tilted his head. Fix what? Your reputation? Silence. Then, with a voice far too cold for a 9-year-old, he said, You're only here because you lost. And we don't want losers in our lives. Lisa broke. Her breath hitched, her shoulders trembled, and for the first time in years, I saw real tears. Not the fake, manipulative ones. Not the ones meant to guilt me into submission, but real, genuine despair. Because for the first time, she wasn't in control. She was powerless, just like she had made us feel. Lisa wiped her face, nodding slowly. I understand, she whispered. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. No last plea. No dramatic exit. Just a woman who had finally realized she was alone. Forever. The next few months were the best I had in years. No fights. No betrayals. No waking up wondering if my own wife was plotting against me. Just peace. Jason thrived. Sophia was happy. And me? I finally got to be the father I always wanted to be, without the weight of a toxic marriage dragging me down. Lisa became a distant memory, an old chapter in a book that no one wanted to read again. And for the first time in my life, I realized something. I was free. Lisa Collins spent years treating us like we were disposable. Now, she was the one forgotten. And we moved on. For good.